When a woman is really good at what she does, irregardless of the industry, and they don't fit the aesthetics of that industry or the aesthetics that society thinks should belong to that industry, there are often labels. I mean, it wasn't long ago that Nicki Minaj came out in an interview and said, hey, I got certain body modifications because I didn't feel like I fit the aesthetics of the industry anymore, and so I needed to go big or go home. In the movie industry, we see characters or people or figures like Viola Davis facing the same issues of them not being sexy enough for Hollywood. But in this video, we're going to talk about the cases of Serena Williams, Simone Biles, Caster Semenya, and Khalif Iman. These are 4 different women playing 4 different sports who started at completely 4 different times in history on their lifetimes, but they often face almost the same critiques. How's that possible? This is born a woman but not female enough. Serena Williams is almost always the target of racist and sexist jokes. Even though she's won over 308 Grand Slams, she's also considered one of the best tennis players of all time, and she's been a victim of this for almost every game won, every magazine cover, and almost every event she attends. And this has been happening to Serena for almost the entirety of her career, and this is a very long time considering how young Serena started playing tennis. And I'm talking about currently, where even black TikTokers made fun of her looks and dance during Black History Month this year, 2025. In 2015, after winning the French Opening, people on Twitter went after her, calling her a gorilla and many other degrading words that, like I said, I will not be delving into or diving into for the purposes of this channel. But when did sports get so sexist? Women and girls in sports history date back further than you think. In fact, Homer's Odyssey depicts women playing ball together. Ancient Greek festivals sometimes included women in foot races, and women could win events at the Olympics. In Spartan culture, it wasn't unusual for women to have athletic opportunities in discus, javelin, and even wrestling. There's also been other traditions honoring women's athletic abilities in Native American culture and other indigenous cultures as well. For example, the lambis is a form of Senegalese wrestling traditionally performed by Sierra people and once included women, until women were banned in the 20th century. Society expected women to be fragile, helpless, and very soft. And this was often the case because women were often thought that if they played sport, it would decrease their chances of also having children and just being good wives overall. They also said that it would mean that women spent less time with their families and so forth. And it was also very difficult because often women in sports were considered an intrusion into the male space. But eventually, athletic clubs for women appeared beginning in the late 1800s and into the 1900s. But for much of the century, in fact, till this day, women in sports are considered unnaturally masculine and some even gay, just because you like sports. But at what point in society did we get to actually start assuming that masculine women could actually be men and think that because of our thoughts and our opinions, we would then start not including them in certain sports? We're moving on to the case of Caster Semenya. How would I label myself? I'm an African. That's the response Caster gave in 2016 when she was being interviewed about her life and the journey she'd gone through after winning a gold Olympics medal. In 2016, a petition was launched to counter comments made by British athlete Paula Radcliffe against South African LGBT track star Caster Semenya. In an interview with BBC Radio, Radcliffe, the marathon world record holder, spoke out against a fellow runner ahead of the Rio Olympics Games. During her interview, Radcliffe said that it would be an unfair game if Caster joined in, considering the fact that her testosterone levels are higher than an average woman. Later on, we got to find out that this condition is actually called hyperandrogenism or hyperandrogenism. And many people who petitioned said that this was no longer an issue about the Olympics or sports in general. This was a racial issue. Later on, though, Radcliffe did say that the statement was misinterpreted and she wanted the edits off of BBC's videos. But this was not the first time Caster Semenya had received such ridiculous commentary about her as a person, as opposed to people just accepting the fact that she's a great runner because she trains like everybody else. During her lifetime, she was often bullied for looking a bit too masculine, for not having breasts or anything like that. In fact, she has pointed out in interviews that I'm no stranger to this, but this wouldn't be the end of society bullying Caster Semenya simply because she's good and she's got a natural advantage. Later on, the Olympics did order for her testosterone levels to get tested to literally show if she's woman enough or not. In more interviews, she did take the test and she explains it as a very horrible process, and she always felt tired, having stomach cramps and so forth. It was all to prove that even though she was born a woman, she was still not feminine enough to compete with other women. But if we're so quick to make people take tests to consider whether or not they are biologically fit to train and compete with people of the same gender, what about the other sex, the males? Let's talk about the French swimmer Michael Phelps. The French swimmer obviously has more lactic acid than any other swimmer, and that gives him an advantage, and that's why he's one of the world's greatest. But when he's a man, it is an incredible superpower. He gets a whole era named after him. But when it's a woman and she so happens to be black, she is considered transgender, made to lower her testosterone just to be able to compete in a game that she loves. Caster Semenya's story is one of the examples that shows that we haven't really gotten that far as a society in terms of inclusion and just not being racist and sexist to begin with. And this actually explains why Michael Phelps was treated like a Marvel superhero while Caster Semenya was treated like a mutant. Why do we even put women in women's sport and nothing when it comes to men's sports? In fact, Serena Williams said, "We should always be judged by our achievements, not by our gender. And people call me one of the greatest female athletes. Do they say LeBron is one of the greatest male athletes? Is Tiger considered one of the greatest male golfers? No, he's just considered a great golfer or one of the greatest golfers. Why is it that for women, when we say they're great, we need to include their gender and not necessarily because they're just really good at that sport?" Well, that, I think, my friends, is a conversation for a whole different video. Simone Biles was often bullied for having such muscular arms. I wonder if she knows how much I aspire to also have muscular arms. But that was one of the biggest points of her entire career. People often forget how great and flexible she really is in gymnastics, but they will leave all her performances and somehow focus on how masculine her arms are. As a result, Simone actually started wearing long sweaters to cover those up until she leveled up in her career and started seeing that, wait a minute, it's actually a very common thing for athletes to have muscular arms. I mean, they train, and so because of that, she started getting a bit more comfortable. But I think Simone Biles thought that her overcoming the whole arms issue would be the end of bigotry and cyberbullying when it came to her life, but she started going viral again after she got married to a man people genuinely thought was too pretty to be hers. Khalif Iman said, "I will fight in the courts, I will fight in the ring, and I will fight in the public until the truth is undeniable." And this comes after her Olympic game where she boxed another woman, and the lady literally said that she had to fight for her life. Khalif Iman was born a woman, raised a woman, and has been in the women's boxing league her entire career. So this was not new to her. The other woman Khalif was boxing against, but when it came to it and she saw that she was losing horribly, she said that she had to fight for her life and it was a matter of life and death. But Khalif did say that she will fight in the ring, she will fight in the courts, and she will fight in the public up until the truth is undeniable. My horrible conclusion to this is that it's still going on, and oftentimes we see that it's often women against women. Yes, there are internet cyber bullies, there are keyboard heroes from other genders who genuinely feel that certain women don't fit the attire or the aesthetics to be in certain sports, or that women need to look a certain way. Even certain wrestlers actually have faced such issues because there's a certain aesthetic that female wrestlers have to, I'd say, abide to. What I hate about all this is that it's often women who make such cases against women, and they make it very hard for other women to compete in women's sports. So I don't think we're going to advance anywhere as a society if we as women are fighting against each other. I think it's silly.